Hello, and welcome to another Precision Flyer Repairs video. This one's about a 332 AC sent to me by a customer that has sentimental value to them, and they wanted it made to look good and run like it should, so that's what I did. And it took considerable work. I call it a track to stack refurb, rebuild, restoration, short of repainting the engine project. But it turned out well, and I just thought I'd share it with you. And you know, the 332 AC in general, it's the largest class of steam engine that Gilbert produced in the American Flyer line. And it's heavy, it's long, they're elegant, they're quite a lot of mass to be negotiating 20-inch radius curves, but they do it well. And they're a terrific machine. This customer, as you can see, blacked out certain elements of it. It's funny, he also sent me a sentimentally valuable 316 Pacific. And on one side of the tender, everything's blacked out. So I know there should be a white stripe along the running boards and under the cab windows on a 332 AC, but he had blacked them out, and I touched them up from nicks and scrapes over the years along with the boiler and tender sides, but just left that black look to it because it was something that apparently he had wanted at one time, and I wanted to leave it the closest to how he remembered it as possible. The 332 AC was made in 1950 to 51. In 1950, the 332 DC was produced. Gilbert was thinking they would equally market, or at least make efforts to, their DC line of engines in S gauge as well as AC, so the suffix was added to designate which one you might be buying. The DC product line really didn't take hold, and so they soon dropped that. So it was missing, and then it surfaced early 50s, and then it disappeared again. And that's a whole nother video's worth of backstory, but that's why this has the AC designation. It's a 484 white class steam engine. The 332 AC came with a small motor, a small pre-Polmore motor, and it does not have Polmore rubber rear drivers. This model was never offered in the large motor, 3/4 inch instead of 1/2 inch winding field and armature. And they do pretty well considering the amount of weight and mass they have to move. With the small motor, they do pretty well. This one, I think, is very peppy. It needed, you know, lots of work. All the drivers have been taken off and disassembled into the three components, and the white insulating rims replaced because a good number of them were messed up and darkened. This had grease on it like I very rarely come across, and I do come across a lot of greasy chassis, but this grease was particularly tenacious, almost pasty, tacky, and very black, of course, and made it quite a mess. And some hand picking work in order to get it out of nooks and crannies where it needed to no longer be. You know, a fresh tether between the tender and the engine, the bottom of the tender all disassembled, those wheel sets taken apart too, and cleaned and polished and gauged and glued and all that good stuff. But you know, otherwise it's really still quite a handsome engine. The shiny bits, I cleaned and polished those up in order to accent against the black nicely again. And so let's take it for a spin. The things I didn't have to do, I didn't have to rewind the armature, the field, the reverse unit and solenoid, or the smoke coil. Everything else needed attention. But the smoke coil measured in at 41.6 ohms. That's pretty typical for factory. If I were to rewind one for a 4-wire, I might wind it down a little bit more like 35 5 wires. I wind close to factory. My target is 42.5 ohms. Now some people wind them down to 25 ohms and things like that, and they'll really fog the room up. They'll crop dust your layout with smoke if you want to go that low. But I like to do what the factory would have done. And this one's wick was petrified, so I did have to take the bottom gasket of the smoke unit off and drop what looks like a big dark brown petrified sugar cube out from the bottom chamber of the smoke unit. And what you do then is don't attempt to unravel it while it's hard. You got to soften it up first, or it can snap and break. It's very brittle at that point. So I use 91% isopropyl alcohol on it. Just soak it in that, all curled up in like a little cube still, and then you'll find eventually you can pull it apart gently, and then I soak it in more of that 91% isopropyl and tamp it with a popsicle stick, and just watch that hard, crusty stuff inside the wick break up and eventually dissolve, and they get quite white and fluffy in the end, and they're really able then to function like they ought to. When they're hard and petrified, usually the symptom you'll find is that the engine will smoke for a little while after you've added fluid, and then that smoke diminishes quickly. And you'll go, I guess I better add more fluid, and you start flooding the thing. The problem is the wick isn't really transferring smoke fluid to the coil effectively. And you're just getting that coil wet with the little bit that runs down the channel, the exhaust channel. And then when that's gone, the wick doesn't do its job. But when it's fluffed up again, when it's rinsed and purged and fluffed up again, they run and perform pretty well for a while. So let's take this one. I'll just do a quick couple of laps, primarily to show this one can get up and go, and running well again in case you want to see what a 332 AC, its sister engine, the 332, is virtually identical to it without the suffix. And it's kind of ironic because this customer sent a 316 and a 332 AC in to have them done. And a couple engines from now, I've got another 316 and a 332 that were sent in by another customer to be worked on. So they're like sister sets, I guess. But anyway, enough of that, and let's see this one go. See, she gets up and goes. She makes it through the twisty bits just fine. And you see that level of smoke. You know, you can get them to just fill the room with smoke if you want to. But honestly, a well-stoked steam engine doesn't blow a lot of smoke. And to me, this is just a level of smoke the factory, I think, primarily intended for us to get. You can see it, you can enjoy it, but you don't get asphyxiated by it. Although, if you want to do that, that can be the choice you make. And do them that way. It reverses cleanly now. And there she is. So that's pretty much it for this episode of Precision Flyer Repair Videos. Thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate that. If you have questions or comments or suggestions on videos you'd like made in the future, please put them in the comment box down below. To find out when I post new videos, please just subscribe and click the all button, and you'll get automatically alerted to new material when it's available. And if you want more information on Precision Flyer Repairs, please feel free to go to my website, precisionflyerrepairs.com, or drop me a line via email. Thanks again. Until next time, be well and have fun running your trains.